And you're right. When I saw your stuff, I thought, and then when we get into this question of what kind of language and mental imagery actually works for human beings thinking about what wokeness is. And that's where, when you talked about an egregore, I thought this is exactly the ancient coding and the ancient language that humans being used to try to get a handle on what is possessing human beings. Someone on Twitter this morning sent me a video of one of the Canadian truckers. They asked him, how did this start? I mean, Canadians are very polite. I mean, a mass demonstration in Canada, not often seen. And this trucker basically says, there's like this energy that grabbed us all. And, and it's like,
right. So let's pause, I think, because I don't want to get too deep on the egregore concept on this video without your viewers having looked at the other one.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Because I think it would be good to catch everybody up on it.
Okay.
In particular, because the egregore concept, there are different people. It popped out and it's become kind of a popular terminology, semi-popular, because it emerged from weird spaces. And there are a lot of people who are using it in different ways.
Yep.
So it would be good to get some semantic boundaries laid out before we go down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
So and because I think the way you want to use it is different than the way that I want to use it, but I think that the ways may be connected, and the discussions of the connection could be very interesting to unpack. My idea, or the way I have been thinking about it, is like this. When you enter into social media, be it Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, any of these things, what you're doing is you have a feed of information that will be either articles or videos, funny cat clips or angry political, diatribes or whatever. And you either ignore it, you pass it over, or you like it, which amplifies its signal, or you share it, which amplifies its signal more. Okay. Twitter is the most basic version of this. Facebook does basically the same thing. These things became very popular. They added them in about 10 years ago because they found out that it created more engagement. Everybody bitches about the algorithms, but the truth about it is that the algorithms are not necessarily what's causing everyone to tear each other apart, because you still see people tear each other apart on Reddit, and their algorithm is very simple. It's not, fine-tuned to create traffic. It's just up, vote, down, vote. Right. When you end this behavior, people call it doom scrolling. It becomes very addictive. And because what you're doing, in part because you're getting a dopamine fix, but largely because you feel as if you are contributing to a moving the needle a tiny bit with every interaction that you take on these systems. Okay. These behaviors are completely analogous to how neurons behave in a brain, except they're more binary signals instead of sending an entire idea. So the nucleus of the neuron has dendrites that stick out around it. Those dendrites collect signals. The signals come in. The signal or combination of signals that it receives goes through some kind of generator function inside the neuron, which causes the axon to fire, which is a big long stick that then branches out and has connections to 3 or 4 other dendrites of other neurons. And then the way we learn is by these connections between neurons breaking and reforming with different neurons, and also by adjustments in that generator function. So that's how the brain fine-tunes itself to be able to do complicated processes. In this similar but not exact same way to tuning an artificial neural network in a computer to learn. Artificial neural networks are webs that are simple and sloppy, and they take a long time to tune. But once you tune it, it can figure out one thing. You can tune it to predict the rains in Africa or to predict a college football score, right? This behavior as we have, like the social media thing, it doesn't have a tuning mechanism for it like an artificial neural network would. It tunes itself. And every time you've unfriended somebody because you can't stand their feed anymore, you are doing the same thing that a neuron does when it breaks a connection and forms a different one. Right. So the thing is set up like a brain. If you step sideways into the AI or, discussion, there are two different forms, two different fields of thought there. One of them is that you could not build an artificial neural network big enough for it to be a thinking being. And then the other one is, if you make something big enough and tangled enough with enough processing power, it's going to become self-aware. Okay. So if you presume that the amount of information conveyed by a like or a share inside the modern social media networks is of no more value than a 1 or a 0, then then the internet right now, social media organisms right now are thinking on the order of a bug. If you presume that every picture is worth 1,000 words and we have a deep concepts embedded in image memes and things like that, and maybe it's not 1,000 words, maybe it's a million bits, then it's thinking at a level much higher than a human right now. But if you look at it, you'll have different brain structures inside this overall brain, right? You've got your conservative bubble, and you've got your liberal bubble, and you've got your Bangladeshi bubble, and you've got whatever else you might have, right? And there's not a lot of crosstalk between these things. And the further we go down the sense-making crisis where we're arguing with each other, the more isolated these things become. And in fact, all the analysis that shows the echo chambers are tightening and the congressional district, men are pulling apart, that kind of stuff, that could be indicative of these brain structures in the overall thing isolating themselves from each other on purpose to war with each other for purchase in the overall human brain space. The best way to war and gain purchase in the overall human brain space for these bundles of ideas being promulgated by people who are connected inside a social media network would be for it to have updates, would be for it to sever ties, would be for it to demonize people in a different bubble, and for it to censor. And that's what we would be doing if we were actually captured by higher order thinking beings inside the overall internet, and we were its brain cells, because we would not be able to know that this being existed. We would just, because its thought is one level up. A neuron doesn't know what a brain's thinking, but we would be behaving this way. And the symptoms that we see now, in my mind, seem to fit the idea that these entities have either formed or are in the process of forming. And that so it's in some ways, this is a very complicated way of explaining that 4chan NPC meme, except that it's more than just one bunch of NPCs. And all the NPCs are interlinked, and something else is feeding them their behavior. Because they're like distributed processing nodes for an overall thing. So that thing is what I'm calling an egregore. Now the original the original understanding what egregore was is a bunch of cultists all get together, they pray hard enough, and they have this big spiritual experience, and then this demon forms from the ether that is connected to their experience or whatnot. Was that demon a function of the peyote, or was it a function of, did they literally manifest it, or was it an idea that then had purchase in their heads and then they followed the idea? There's different probable interpretations of where these things came out of in in paganism and occultism. But I have spoken with, I cast a very wide social network. I know blues, I know reds, I know weirdos. I know a guy in Aleister Crowley's OTO, and he was telling me when he describes demons to people, that's the form that they take in his descriptions to them. And these are people who get together and legitimately cast summoning spells and crap, right? Is that stuff real? I mean, like, I'll go ahead and jump way out front of this. My position on the occult is two things. Either one, it's all bullshit, in which case you don't have to worry about it all. Or two, it's too goddamn dangerous to be messing with. So that's my opinion about that stuff. But I've talked to people who are into it, and these are the kind of formations that they've been describing, right? Just in a different way. And in some ways, they're similar to what you were doing in your critique of the Rebel Wisdom video that I was on, right? Now, does that mean that this? Well, see, here's the thing. Did these egregores exist before the internet, and in a more spiritual sense? I don't know. Does the ones that are forming now, are they of the same nature of the ones that formed before? Hard to say. But I think that we can make a really good argument that even if these things didn't used to exist, that they're certainly either exist now or will eventually, because of this new space that we created in our phone. You keep showing your phone, I'll show mine. This is a place where they can certainly live.
Yes.
Because of that analysis. And I can't imagine them not becoming very important in the next century, when we've really only got, 20 good years of the internet under our belt so far. Right? We got 80 years left to the end of the century. And where's it going to go from here?